So today's session session 1, we're going to be starting to talk about a few topics. So let me quickly say what are we going to cover tonight. And not only tonight, we are going to be the following topics would be covered this week. So the idea of this week would be to cover the following topics. The first topic that we are going to be talking about is SAP and its landscape. That's going to be the first topic that we're going to cover. That will probably be the whole of today's session. And then we will move on to what is called the OLTP versus OLAP systems. And the third one is going to be ER and MDM models. So this week we'll be covering SAP and its landscape. We'll be talking about OLTP and OLAP systems, and then we'll also be talking about ER and MDM model. The reason why we're going to be talking about these three topics are this will lay the foundation for what we're going to be doing in SAP BW system. So once we get a good idea of what these different topics cover, it will be a good leeway into our sessions, which is actually talking about the overview of SAP BW system and getting into the different pieces of SAP BW system. Okay, so today's primary focus is going to be on SAP and its landscape. If time permits, we will move on to OLTP and OLAP system. If not, in the next session, which would be on Wednesday, we will continue with the following topics. So before we move on to any topic, are there any questions from the previous session, or would it help if I give a quick overview of what was given on last session? Maybe I can spend about 5 minutes explaining what was taught during the demo session. Can anybody ping and let me know if you want me to do a recap of what I did on the demo, or do you want me to proceed further? If you want me to do a quick recap, just ping S on the chat window. That way I can quickly do maybe a 5-minute recap of what we have spoken about. I see there are a few new folks who have joined the session. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to quickly give a recap of what we have spoken about. Okay, so this particular training is for SAP BW 7.3, and during the last session what we did is we went into detail as to what an SAP BW system is. An SAP BW system is an end-to-end data warehousing tool. The two main concepts that we spoke about was it's a data warehousing tool, and it is also a end-to-end solution. Okay, so let's quickly look at what a data warehousing system is and why is SAP BW called an end-to-end solution. So in a traditional environment, what we have is something called as a transactional database. If you look at any organization, for example, a Walmart or a bank or any system, what they typically have is a point of sale system. A point of sale system would store transactions, and it would pass on information into a traditional transactional database. And the traditional database is called OLTP system. OLTP standing for Online Transaction Processing System. So what happens is, as and when a transaction has happened on a POS system, the data is pushed directly into the OLTP system. So the data that is sitting in a traditional database is very granular in nature. So what happens is, typically what will happen is, let's say this is the account number, name XYZ, bought, let's say, a Whopper for $5. So this is the kind of information that gets stored in an online transaction processing system. So it is very detailed in nature. So with this kind of information, let's say I'm the manager for this entire company, and I want to get some analytical reporting from my traditional databases. If I tap into this information that's sitting in a traditional database, the layer contains very granular information. So with this kind of data structure that is stored in a traditional database, it is not helpful for a manager to provide analytical reporting, that is business intelligence reporting. So nowadays what's happening is managers are looking for something called as business intelligence reporting. In order to provide business intelligence reporting, it is not enough to just tap into the OLTP system and get the information. So what needs to happen is, so let's say for example, I'm the manager for the Midwest region. I take care of all the operations that's happening in the Midwest region. So there is an OLTP system sitting in Chicago. Let's say there is also another OLTP system that is coming from another place in the Midwest. So since these information are stored at different systems, it is very difficult for a manager to tap into each of these different systems, get the information, and use that information to provide analytical reporting. So in order to overcome this issue, what happened is in the late 70s and early 80s, a new concept was brought into place, which is called as data warehousing. A data warehousing is nothing but it has two pieces to it. One is it contains an application layer, and it also contains an underlying database. So let's look at the traditional databases. So I have multiple databases sitting across the region. Let's say this is, for example, Westmont, this is Naperville, and this is Aurora. So I have multiple OLTP systems lying across different places, and I want to bring in that information to the manager so that the manager can use that information for analytical reporting. So what we are going to do is, with the data warehousing system, the data warehousing system helps to bring all the information from multiple sources into one common platform. It brings data from all these systems, converts the layer. So for example, if you look at the traditional systems, they are all storing data in a different format. See, this Westmont could be holding an Oracle database, Naperville could have a Microsoft SQL Server, and Aurora could have a totally different system altogether. So the data that is sitting in all these different places are stored in different formats. So what this data warehousing system is going to do for us is take the data, the different format data from multiple sources, bring them into one common platform, convert them into a format that is applicable across the system. So bringing it into a common data structure and store it in one application. So this becomes a platform that holds all the information in one place. When we convert this into a common structure, what happens is it becomes easier for the manager to look into this data. Now the manager does not have to go to 3 different regions to get 3 different places to get the information. All the information is stored in one common place, and it becomes easier for the manager to tap into this particular common platform and provide intelligent reporting. So this is the concept of data warehousing. So the way by which we can provide intelligent reporting is to bring all the data into a common platform, into a common structure. And this system is also referred to as OLAP system. OLAP stands for Online Analytical Processing. So that's the other name for a data warehousing system. It's also called as OLAP. The traditional databases are referred to as OLTP systems. So the process of converting data from an OLTP system into an online analytical processing system is commonly referred to as data warehousing, and that is what we're talking about. So now that we have understood what a data warehousing system is, let's look at the three primary functions of a data warehousing system. No matter what the tool is, I'm not going into any specific tool. At this point, let's talk about a data warehousing. Talk about data warehousing, there are three primary steps that needs to happen in any data warehousing tool. It can be SAP BW, it can be Hyperion, it could be any software that we have. Three primary functions are modeling, ETL, which stands for extract, transform, and loading, and the final reporting. So these are three primary functions that are performed by data warehousing tool. It does not matter what the tool is, all of them are supposed to execute these three primary functions. So these are the primary functions for any data warehousing tool. So let's quickly go into this details as to what modeling, ETL, and reporting process does. So modeling is nothing but, let's say I have a traditional database which is Oracle. I have another database that is sitting on Microsoft SQL Server, and I have my target data warehousing system sitting here. So the data that is stored in the Oracle database could be in a completely different structure and different format than what is stored in my Microsoft SQL Server. So the first thing I have to do is I have to get the data from the Oracle database and the Microsoft SQL Server, understand the different tables that are associated with each of these databases. So there could be multiple tables sitting within this database, and similarly there could be multiple tables sitting under the Microsoft SQL Server. As a first step of modeling, what I would do is I would analyze the database and the tables that are sitting within the Oracle and the Microsoft SQL Server, and then what I do is I convert it. So let's say in a traditional database system, what happens is all the data is stored with something called as ER model concept, and ER stands for entity relationship. So a traditional database is always designed using an ER model. This ER model is good as long as users are reporting on this transactional database for simple reasons. So let's say, for example, let's take an example where I have a bank account and I log in into my web account. The kind of transactional reporting that I could do on a transactional system is I can ask the system to give me 30 days of transactions that has happened in my account. So it is a very simple thing because the data is already stored in a transaction level. All I'm doing is I'm just doing a query on that information and bringing that data. For that kind of information, transactional reporting is good. But let's say for example, I want to do an analytical reporting. I want to do a trend reporting. I say that, okay, I want to look at my May 2013 data transaction that has happened this year, and I want to compare it with prior year May 2013 and see how my expenses have been or how my income has been. So what I'm doing is I'm not just looking at one set of data. I'm taking an existing data and I'm comparing it going back in time for a year, and I'm doing a comparison. So this is called a trend reporting. So with the information that is stored in a transactional database, I would not be able to directly look at this and bring in that kind of reporting. So what we are doing is with this modeling, we are converting the ER model into something called as MDM model. MDM stands for multi-dimensional model. So what we do is we look at the table structures that are available in the source system, analyze and see how it needs to be converted to get into this common platform, and we create structures or tables within the data warehousing platform. It could be an info cube or it could be a data store object, whatever it is. So what we are doing is we are doing a conversion from ER model into MDM model, and based on this MDM model we create different structures that will be required to store all the data that is coming from multiple source system. So this is the first step in any data warehousing system, that is modeling, and this is the most important step in any data warehousing project, because this is where a project can be made or broken. If the modeling is not correct, the performance will be highly degraded, and it will cause a lot of problems in the future when during implementation we would have a lot of issues. So this is the primary function of a data warehousing system. Next, what we have is called the ETL step. So now that we have understood, again we have a data warehousing system, we have multiple source systems that are bringing data. Now that we have established our modeling, we know what are all the structures that we need in our data warehousing system. We have identified all the tables that we need to build and all that. Now the second step is we need to establish a connection between the data warehousing system and the multiple source systems. So what we need to do is we have to establish connection, which is nothing but extracting data from multiple source systems. So that is the E, which is extraction. So we have to establish connection, and then once the connection is established, as I said, data that is stored in an Oracle database could be stored in a completely different format than what it is stored in a Microsoft SQL. So for example, this is a very common example that I can give. Let's say in a specific, the data for male is stored as M, and for female it is stored as F. But in another system, in a Microsoft SQL, it can be stored as 1 for male and 0 for female. Now the same information is stored as multiple ways in different databases, but when it comes in the data warehousing system, we want to keep it in a common structure, because it doesn't make sense for a manager to come in a common platform and still find that there are two versions of data that is sitting. It doesn't really make sense. So for making the platform consistent, what we are going to do is the business will provide some logic as to what needs to be done, and those are called as business rules, and we commonly refer to them as transformations. So what we do is we take the information that is coming from the source system, apply business rules based on the requirements provided to us, and convert the data and store it into the data warehousing system. So that is the transformation piece. So we have established connections to the source system, which is extraction, to bring in the data. We have applied the business rules, which is nothing but the transformation. So the last piece of this second primary function is actually loading data. After the connection is established and all the transformations are put in the system, we load the data into the data warehousing system. So this is the second primary function of a data warehouse. So the final primal function is nothing but it is the reporting. So now that we know that we have an entire data warehousing system which contains all the information, which has all the target structures, the data is all loaded, everything is there. But just having the data in a common platform alone will not do any good, right? So for the manager to actually get this information and provide intelligent reporting, they should tap into this information and create intelligent reporting. So for creating intelligent reporting, we need certain tools that will help us provide this intelligent data. So what we are going to do is we have something called as reporting, which is the different tools that are available for in a data warehousing solution that can look into the data warehousing system and provide intelligent reporting. So these are the three primary functions of a data warehousing. So now quickly let's talk about, if I go back to my first slide, I said these are the two things that comprises of an SAP BW system. So we have quickly talked about what a data warehousing tool is. Now let's quickly talk about an end-to-end solution. The reason why SAP BW is referred to as an end-to-end solution is there are a lot of tools in the market which provides one or two of the primary functions that are required for a data warehousing tool. So if you look at it, the three primary functions are modeling, ETL, reporting. So a data warehousing tool is expected to do all these three functions. A tool is said to be an end-to-end solution if the same tool can provide all the three primary functionalities. So in the case of SAP BW system, what it can do is it comprises of modeling tools, it comprises of ETL tools, and it also comprises of reporting tools. So if an organization buys a SAP BW system, they don't have to go into another outside party tool to do any data warehousing functionality. It is a self-contained tool that can do all the three functions of a data warehouse. So looking at SAP BW system, SAP BW modeling functionality and ETL functionalities have always been the best in the market. They have always been market leaders. But when it came to reporting, the primary tools that were being used were something called as BEX suite. BEX for Business Explorer. This is an Excel based tool, and this tool had a lot of limitations when compared to tools like Business Objects or Cognos or other reporting tools. Business Explorer was lagging behind in the market share. So in the year 2007, SAP went and bought Business Objects tool, and Business Objects became part of SAP BW system. As soon as that happened, SAP reporting tool also became extremely strong. They brought in about 30 or 40 different tools from SAP BO for reporting and made the data warehousing functionality really strong. So they became strong in all the three different areas, and that is the reason why SAP BW is referred to as the #1 in data warehousing solution. They are the market leaders in data warehousing. So these are the concepts that we went through during the demo session. Are there any questions? Are there any questions? If not, I will move on to today's session. Okay. What we have done now is, yes, who is this? Is Srinath? Do you have a question?
Hello.
Hello. Hi, Sridhar. Do you have a question?
Suman?
Yes, Sridhar.
Is it the same? Whatever the job does by Informatica is the same? SAP BW?
Correct. So when talking about Informatica only does the ETL processing, Sridhar.
Yes.
So
Correct.
it is the popular ETL tool, but it's not a self-contained contained data warehousing tool, because it does not. Though it has a little bit of modeling functionality to it, it is not an end-to-end tool that can be used for data warehousing.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
Yes. Thank you.
Sure. All right. So if there are no other questions, let's move on to today's session. So as I said, today I'm going to be primarily covering SAP landscape. SAP and its landscape. Let me explain why we should spend some time working on SAP landscape. So everybody is pretty much new to SAP landscape. When we go into this real world and get started, can everybody hear me? Manoj just told me that my voice is breaking. Can everybody else hear me here?
Yes,
I can hear you actually. It's breaking in between.
Yes, in between it's breaking. Correct. This is real.
Okay, can you hear now?
Also, it was breaking.
It was breaking. Yeah.
Okay. How is it now?
Same.
Alright, give me 1 minute. Let me see if I can just unplug my phone and I'll connect back. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it better? Is it better now?
Yeah.
Yes. Perfect.
Thank you. Yeah, please let me know because I wouldn't know the difference.
It's not always.
Yeah, if there is any disturbance, please let me know so that I can quickly check and make sure everything is working okay.
Yeah,
Thanks
it's
for
not
letting me
always
know.
in between when the network jam or something. That could be the reason normally.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Sure. Okay. So let me quickly talk about SAP and landscape. As a BW consultant, it is a requirement that all consultants know about the SAP landscape. The reason why is if a company is investing money on SAP BW data warehousing tool, 95% of the time the company already has an SAP presence. So the company could already have SAP ECC, could have different modules like SAP CRM, SAP APO, SAP SRM, and the whole suite of business objects reporting. So an SAP BW system can be connected to one or many of these SAP products. So since SAP BW tool is a data warehousing tool, the idea of it is it needs to connect to multiple source systems and provide reporting on top of that. So when we are talking about a powerful data warehousing tool, and this being in the SAP landscape, we also should be aware as a consultant what the different SAP source systems that are available in the market, what are the different SAP landscape that we have, and how does SAP BW interact. Because once we start going into a real project, it is expected that we as an SAP BW consultant, we have worked with several modules in SAP and also non-SAP systems. And so what we should know is we should have a good understanding of what the landscape is, how has the SAP system evolved in these past years, and we should have a good understanding of what it does. By knowing, I will to confidently speak in any project, or let's say even during interview time, when you talk about your experience working with SAP BW and different SAP modules, it will be very convenient. It will be very easy for you to talk about it. That's why we want to spend a little time talking about SAP and its landscape. Okay, so let's first talk about that. So SAP stands system, application, and products in data processing. This is the abbreviation of SAP system. So this company, SAP, was started by a few IBM consultants. What happened is in the year 1972.
No, this is a phone is SAP. Clarity direct connection.
Somebody is not in mute. I'm not able to say who it is. It's all news 6. Could you please mute yourself if you don't have any questions? Thank you. Is my break again? Can you hear me now?
Suman.
Sorry, who was that?
This is Sanjay here. You're breaking in between, Suman.
Oh, is it?
Yep.
Okay. Can you hear me better now?
Yeah, it is better now. Yep.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Or
So
maybe
what happened?
somebody is unmuting themselves. I think at that time your voice is dropping only at that time. I think.
Yeah. If you don't mind, if you don't have any questions, could you please mute yourself so that there are no disturbance on the network? Thank you. All right. Okay. So in the year 1972, 6 IBM guys came out of IBM and they started a new company called SAP. And this was started in Germany, and that's why you will see that SAP always is referred to as SAP AG. All German companies are referred with an AG at the end of the company, and that's how the naming convention is. So what happened is, let's talk about SAP. SAP system is a ERP solution. Can anybody try and give me an explanation of what an ERP system is? We'll try and keep this interactive so that we get ideas from all the candidates. Okay. So does anybody want to give a shot as to what an ERP solution is?
ERP is an enterprise resource planning, which I think from my knowledge, we is a fulfillment kind of system. We maintain fulfillment kind of systems where maintain inventory and all those things for a big organization, manufacturing or sales, capturing sales and all these things. The front-end application will be CRM or something application or some other application where the system might be systems are interfacing with the ERP when customer is ordering any of the product. So make sure the product is available or not. That is connected to ERP system, and ERP system maintains all the inventory over there. And it checks, and if the product is available, then immediately the message will go to CRM system, and it displays something like.
Excellent. Sorry, I didn't catch your name. It's I see it as call-in user 6.
This is Sridhar.
Sridhar? Okay. Thank you, Sridhar. That was an excellent explanation. So that's what we are talking about. So this ERP solution, does anybody else want to give it a shot as to what they think ERP solution is? Anybody else? I'll take one more answer and then I'll discuss the topic.
It's enterprise resource planning to bring all the systems together and make it a centralized, so all the changes made up in the different, like whether in CRP, sales, distribution, and bring in everything onto the changes should be made real-time changes, and everything, all the systems are interacting at the same time with the different, the sales are with the accounts, how many payments are made for those, if the company is buying something, so those are updated into the accounts as well at the same time, and the CRM for the sales part, if they have to sell something, and for the CRM they can track their sales. So all those kind of like together. That's I think the ERP is.
Perfect. Thanks, Gary. Thanks a lot, Gary and Sridhar. I think you nailed it right. So let's quickly talk about the ERP system. So let me take an organization as an example and see how ERP works. Okay. So let's talk about the core functionalities of any organization. Let's say it could be a bank, it could be a pharmaceutical company, it could be an insurance company. No matter what, there are certain things that there are certain departments that are required in any organization for it to run properly. So let's take an example of a manufacturing company. A primary functionality that they would require is finance. Definitely any organization would require a finance department. And since we are talking about a manufacturing company, let's say this company also needs materials. It also needs sales and delivery. And let's say this company also requires human resource. So for a company to run efficiently and function properly, all these different departments let's say finance, materials, sales and delivery, and human resource, they should be interacting properly at the correct time, so that the data from one department to the other department moves seamlessly. And as Gary mentioned, it should be close to real time, so that there is a correct picture as to what is there in the company and how data is moving from one department to the other. So what we are talking here is, we are talking about tight integration of data flow across different departments in an organization. So let's take an example. Let's say my sales and delivery department sent a customer order worth of $10,000. So they delivered a product to the customer and they got $10,000. The moment the company made $10,000, it has to go and touch the finance department, right? Because finance is always looking at the data for revenue or payable or information like that. So the moment an order for $10,000 is made, a specific area in finance called accounts receivable gets intimation that a $10,000 sale has been completed. But for this $10,000 to be, for this product to be delivered, the company had to reach out to somebody in a vendor and get the raw materials to actually make the sale happen. The company also needs raw materials to make the product. So for this, the company has to pay the vendor and get some information. The moment you pay somebody, the accounts payable section in finance department has to spend money. Similarly, for the sales to happen, there should be human interaction. If not, there, how would we make the product? So there is human interaction that happens as and when a sales and delivery happens. So if you look at it, this example, there is a tight integration. For a sale to happen, a raw material needs to be bought, and for the raw material to be bought, a finance department has to shed out money, and for actually making the product, the human resources involved to make the product and deliver the product. So when a organization is running like this, they are tightly integrated. Let's say before the concept of ERP system, that is enterprise resource planning, let's say my company had all my finance applications created using .NET, for example, and all my sales and delivery was created using a Java application, and my material management was created using a tool called Power Builder, for example. If you look at it, right now my organization is actually using 3 different applications to control the different departments in my organization. So finance is using a .NET application, material management is using Power Builder, sales and delivery is using a tool called Java. With tools being across the board, imagine how the integration is going to happen. The integration of multiple systems within an organization becomes a nightmare, and as and when the department and the data that gets loaded into the system expands, it becomes very difficult for us to interact between a .NET, Power Builder and Java application and keep the data in sync across the board. So in order to overcome all this issue and come up with a very good data integration solution, we came up with this new concept called ERP. So the first ERP tool that came into the market was not SAP system. It was Oracle applications. So when Oracle looked at the market industry and came up with solution for ERP, their product was referred to as Oracle Financial. As the name itself suggests, what they did is they went and did a lot of research on the financial industry, and they came up with an ERP system that would tightly integrate the financial section of an organization. So there would be good ERP planning within the financial sector. But when the Oracle financial application was brought into the market, their primary focus was only on the finance and the finance industry. So nothing was done to the other industries in the market like pharmaceuticals or logistics or material management or be it any different industry. So looking at this is the time when SAP in 1972 went and did a lot of research on the ERP applications. They went and did research on 25 different industries, which includes pharmaceuticals, financial industry, fast food industry, hospital, oil and gas industries, several other industries. So 25 industries were looked at, and they came up with an ERP system. And the ERP system primarily had 3 sections. So it was a more generalized ERP system. And if you look at it, it was focused on financial accounting, like that of Oracle application. It also focused on logistics. And the third one is HRMS system, which is human resource management system. So when we talk about financial accounting, these are all the different products that come under financial accounting. There is accounts payable, accounts receivable, general ledger, and then we have investment management, and there are several other tools: COPA, cost profitability accounting, cost center accounting, and there are several other tools that are used in financial accounting. So these are few examples.
Hello. Hey, is this Narasimha? Hey, Narasimha, this is
I can.
Manoj here. My name is Manoj.
Manoj, if you don't mind, can you
We
view?
do not know each other, but your name was actually given to me by a good friend of you, and he's good friend of me also. Mahindra from Lexington, Kentucky.
Manoj, I don't think. Looks like
Doing
Manoj
very
is
well, doing very well. Yeah, actually, you know what? I also live in Lexington, and I actually come to do some project for him, and then he actually asked me to just.
Manoj, can you hear me, please?
That is how actually, yeah. Yeah. So how are things with you? It looks like you are very close friends, huh? With each other. You studied together in India.
Okay, sorry about that, guys. Okay, so we were talking about financial accounting, and in logistics, there are different modules that are covered under logistics. So those are SD, MM, production planning, and there are several other tools that are used in the logistics system. So that is for logistics. Then comes HRMS. So when in HRMS, there are a lot of information that are being stored. Payroll information, benefits, travel and expense, labor, time and labor. These are several examples. So what SAP did was, it went across, understood the different industries that are available in the market, looked at the common 3 functionalities that are used by any organization, and they came up with modules that would help integrate information across these different modules. So financial accounting, that takes care of AP, AR, GL, COPA, cost center, everything. Logistics takes care of SD, MM, production planning, all this information. HRMS takes care of data, payroll, benefits, and all this. So there was a tight integration between all these 3 systems. And this is why SAP became a market leader when compared to Oracle Financials. The reason being that Oracle Financials was only focused on a specific sector. But when you look at SAP, it was a more generalized solution, and it could apply across many industries. And this is why it became a very popular tool for ERP solution. Any questions so far? Okay. Yes, Rafiq, did you have a question?
No, it's okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right. Okay, so this is the landscape for SAP. So this is how SAP got into the ERP market. That is the entry point for SAP. So in 1972, when the IBM guys came out of this IBM, they started this company with the primary focus that they wanted to create an ERP system. So in 1972, when they created the system, this is how they created. In 1972, SAP was created as a R1 system. If you look at SAP systems, they are commonly referred to as an R system, and I'll tell what R is. So R stands for, can anybody guess what R stands for?
It's real time.
Correct, that's correct. So it is real time. So R stands for real time. One is a one tier architecture. It's one tier architecture. So when SAP actually started off with the ERP system, they came up with a one tier architecture. One tier architecture is nothing but, at that point, I'm talking about 1970s, the popularly used tool was mainframe. That was the single architecture that was used to develop ERP systems. So the different versions of R3 system that we had was, it was during the R1 architecture, we had the 1.0A version, and then we had in 1993 SAP came with 2.0 or 2.1, and then eventually they came with 3.0 and 3.1. So these are the different versions of SAP R1 system that were available in the market till about 1995. I'm talking about a time frame of 1972 to 1975. And then later SAP moved into a different architecture. So what they did is they looked at the flaws with the R1 system, and they wanted to slowly move into a different architecture called R2 architecture. R2, as the name suggests, it is a two-tier architecture system. And I'll quickly explain what a two-tier architecture system is. So in a two-tier architecture system, there is something called as a main server. So this is the main server, and within the main server is the application server and also the database server. So the main server contains both the application server in it and also the database server. And on top of that, we have something called as a client. So these two comprises of the two-tier architecture. The client interacting with the main server is referred to as the R2 architecture. So this is the R2 architecture. And in R2 architecture, there were several versions. We had like 4.0B, 4.5B. So these are all the different versions that we had in R2 architecture. And then we slowly moved on to something called as, in the mid of 1990s, SAP moved into a new architecture called R3, SAP R3, and that was for a very long time the most popular architecture that SAP had, SAP R3 architecture. So in the SAP R3 architecture, what happened is we removed the concept of main server. So we have different clients. So a client could be a browser, like an Internet Explorer, or it could be an SAP GUI, GUI standing for graphical user interface. So it could be a client, and what will happen is the client will interact with a application server, and the application server in turn will interact with a database. So the application server and the database server was separated from one to the other. So this is commonly referred to as the R3 architecture. I hear somebody call in user 7. If you don't have any questions, can you please mute yourself? Okay. So this is the R3 architecture that was popularly used by SAP for a very long time. Till about the early 2000, SAP was using the SAP R3 architecture. And if you had noticed SAP systems, you would have commonly heard terms like 4.6 SAP R3 system, 4.7 SAP R3 system, SAP R3 system. Yes, Murli. I was able to mute the person who was actually was talking. So thank you. Yeah, I was able to do that. So till about the early 2000, R3 was referred to as an R3 SAP was ERP system was referred to as SAP R3, and then followed by a version number like 5, 5.0 or 6.0. In the year 2003-2004, when SAP R3 moved into the 5.0 version, what happened is SAP took away the concept of R3 and they moved on to a new naming nomenclature called SAP ECC, and ECC refers to ERP Central Component. Because if you look at an ERP system, it's actually behaving like a central component. It is integrating data from all the different applications, and hence the system came up with this new name called SAP came up with this new name called SAP ECC. So going forward from 2003 or 4 onward, if you look at the enterprise resource planning system for SAP, they are referred to as SAP ECC and then followed by a version. So the latest version we have is SAP ECC 6.0. So this is the naming convention. So if you look at SAP, SAP started off its products using an ERP tool. It's moved from an R1 architecture to R2, and then subsequently moved into a R3 architecture, and then the R3 architecture was renamed as ERP Central Component. So this is the naming and the growth or the evolution of SAP system in the ERP product. Okay, so now let's look at how SAP landscape has developed in the years. Let's talk about SAP ERP system first. So when we talk about SAP ERP system, I'm talking about a time frame of, let's say, between 1972 till about 1995 or 7, something like that, in that time frame. So if you look at the organizations that were running ERP systems during 1972 and 1995, they were all primarily located in one country. So if, let's say for example, if a company was headquartered in US, the company had only one presence. It did not have a global presence. So when there was no global presence required, the concept of having a financial accounting module a logistics module, and a HRMS module were more than sufficient to do a closely, tightly integrated solution. It was working fine because we didn't have to go globally and look at other data that is sitting in other continents or other part of the world. When there was only one system or one organization available, it was more than sufficient for us to use the existing module like AP, AR, GL within financial and SD, MM, PP and all these information in logistics and HRMS data. That were all these modules were sufficient enough to run an organization. But what happened is, after 1995, so greater than 1995, what happened is companies started moving into a different direction. So companies started going global. It was not sufficient if the company had presence in only one country. They started moving across continents and getting information and tightly integrating our departments across the globe. So when that happened, it was not just sufficient to have these three modules. SAP had to look into these three modules and enhance on top of these modules so that they can be the market leader in ERP solutions. So they actually came up with something that could establish the presence of SAP not only in ERP system but also advance it to a larger group and make the ERP solution the number one. So in order to do that, the moment we talk about global data, the first thing that comes to mind is we have to bring in data from multiple places. So I can have data sitting in India, I can have data sitting in Asia, in China, I can have data sitting in Europe or in America. The moment I talk about global, I want to bring all that information into one platform. So the first thing that came into SAP's thought was, that is right after the globalization concept came into existence, SAP spent a lot of money working on a tool called SAP BW. But when they started working on SAP BW, it was not only that product. SAP BW is the first data warehousing tool that was brought into SAP. But SAP's core functionality, if you look at it, it's always been the ERP system. So in addition to bringing global data into a single platform, SAP also wanted to make sure that they look at each of these modules and see if they can be enhanced. So on top of these core modules, SAP brought in something called as My SAP Business Suite. So this My SAP Business Suite is nothing but it is an advanced system comprising of 16 additional new modules on top of FI, logistics and HRMS. So this is, so once beyond 1995, when the globalization became prominent in all the organization, excuse me, SAP came up with something called as My SAP Business Suite. My SAP Business Suite comprises of about 16 modules. In the 16 module, the first primary module that was created was SAP BW. So at that point, SAP did not have any data warehousing solution to offer, but they had a lot of data sitting across different regions in different countries using only ERP system. So they wanted to quickly go into the market for data warehousing and get all this information stored efficiently and available for intelligent reporting. So they started off with SAP BW. As if they were working on SAP BW, they also started working on different tools. So these are called, the 16 modules are called the new dimensions or new dimensional products. So the new dimensional products were, examples, SAP CRM. SAP CRM, Customer Relationship Management. When I look at customer relationship management, the first thing that everybody would like to know is logistics comprises of SD, MM, PP and supply chain management. So these are all put together called as supply chain management. So the biggest difference between sales and distribution and SAP CRM, one could ask, SAP SD and SAP CRM would do the same thing, right? It is all related with marketing and sales and distribution. But if you look at the existing or the initially created SD module, sales and distribution, its primary focus is sales and delivery. It does not look at pre-sales, which is referred to as marketing, and post-sales, which is customer service. So when the logistics SD module was created in the 1970s, there was no focus on marketing or customer services in an organization. It was primarily focusing on just doing the sales and delivery. So within my SAP Business Suite, what happened is SAP looked at SD and filled in the missing pieces. So it created an advanced module called SAP CRM, which not only does sales and distribution, but also it does pre-sales and post-sales, which is marketing and customer service. So it is an enhancement, or you can call it as an advanced SD module. SAP CRM is referred to as advanced SD module. Similarly, if you look at material management is about how materials are brought into the system and how materials are handled in the organization. An advanced system for that would be SAP SRM. Is an advancement to the materials management system. Again, similarly for production planning, there is an advanced system called SAP APO, which stands for Analytical Planning Optimizer. So that's APO. So if you look at it, what SAP did is it looked into its existing modules and started creating advanced modules for those existing modules. So that is how my SAP Business Suite actually came up with all the 16 new modules that are required to compete in the current market, which is global market. That is how it came from a traditional ER model into a my SAP Business Suite application. So similarly, there is product lifecycle management, HCM. So HRMS was converted into another system called an advanced system called SAP HCM, which is human capital management. So this is how the advanced versions of SAP modules were created in the late 1990s, around 1995 to 1998. During that time, all these systems came into existence, and that's when SAP BW became a prominent leader in data warehousing solution. Even at that point of time, it was an end-to-end solution when SAP started off with the data warehousing tool. So this went on till about the mid 2000. So during 2004-2005, SAP revamped it. So if you look at the early 2000s, it was a .com, it was an internet boom. Everything was moving into the internet solutions. It was moving into a service-oriented architecture model. So what happened is SAP also wanted to get into that market, and SAP went into something called as NetWeaver. A NetWeaver is an architecture that is primarily based on internet model. So what happened is, let me quickly go into another slide and explain how a NetWeaver function. Or even before that, let me talk about how the my SAP Business Suite application used to function. So let's say my organization had SAP ECC, had SAP CRM, had SAP BW, had SAP APO. So these are the different SAP modules that the organization had. So as a user, let's say I'm a manager, I want to look into each of these systems and get some information. So what used to happen is, as a manager, I would log into the SAP ECC system, get the information. If I want some information from the CRM system, I have to establish another connection, connect to the CRM system and get information. Similarly, I would do the same thing for a BW system and an APO system. So what is happening is, I am wasting time. One is I'm wasting time because I'm establishing connection with each of my systems separately, and each of it needs a user ID and password that needs to be kept. So this is prior to NetWeaver architecture. With the NetWeaver architecture, what happened is SAP worked on the concept where if I am a user, my only concern should be that I have to log into something. So this is called the single sign-on. As a user, I connect into my organization once using a single user ID, and that connection will help me connect to all the different systems across my organization. So this could be SAP BW, it could be SAP CRM, or it could be anything else. It could be an SAP ECC system. So what happened is, with the NetWeaver architecture, they came up with a concept called web server. So the authentication, the sign on into the different applications in the organization was controlled using a web server. What the user had to do is, all he had to do was he had to establish a connection to the web server using a single sign on. The moment the connection is established, the user can seamlessly go into a BW system or a CRM system or a ECC system. So what happened is, with NetWeaver, the very first module that came into existence was called Enterprise Portal. So when we talk about Enterprise Portal, the best example I can give you is, if you look at a yahoo.com or a msn.com, what happens is, once you log into a yahoo.com, you see that there are a bunch of information sitting on one place. There is information on finance, there is information on weather, there is information on entertainment. All the information are being stored in one screen. But if you look at it, do you think that all these information, like the weather, the finance, the entertainment, do you think all of them are sitting in one database? They are all probably different applications running in different servers and different applications altogether. It could be a Java application, it could be a .NET application. But what happens is, for a user, it becomes transparent. I have several applications sitting on my system. It could be weather, it could be sports, it could be finance related information. But for user, if I look at the system, to me, all I'm doing is I'm just logging into the portal. In this case, I'm logging into yahoo.com. That internally gives me all the information that I require. I don't have to separately log into a page where I can get weather information or go into finance or sports information. So this is the concept. So what happened is, if I go back here, SAP NetWeaver concept, SAP came up with something called as Enterprise Portal. So once Enterprise Portal came into existence, so this was around the year 2004, and that's why you will commonly see that SAP became very prominent. That became the framework for SAP architecture. It used the service-oriented architecture, and it uses the Enterprise Portal. It is using the single sign-on concept, where a user just logs into a GUI and into an Enterprise Portal, and that takes the user to different sections of the organization. So what happened is, when Enterprise Portal came into existence, SAP BW, if you look at it, it is again looking at data from several applications. So it made sense for SAP to say that bring SAP BW from a SAP Business Suite application concept into a NetWeaver concept. So what happened is, in the year 2004-2005, as soon as the Enterprise Portal was created as part of NetWeaver, SAP decided that they wanted to move the SAP BW out of the My SAP Business Suite module and put it under the SAP NetWeaver module. So SAP BW is tightly integrated with Enterprise Portal, making reporting available through web browser, knowledge management, all this information of SAP BW. Because if you look at it, the kind of data that is in the SAP BW system makes it more relevant to be connected to an Enterprise Portal. kind of application. So in the year 2004 and forward, SAP BW moved out of the My SAP Business Suite applications to a NetWeaver architecture. The other module that came into existence in the NetWeaver architecture is called MDM, Master Data Management. So as an organization, after the globalization had happened, an organization could have master data sitting across the globe in different formats and in different versions. So it becomes a nightmare for the organization to maintain master data across the globe. So what happened is SAP spent a lot of time and research on creating a central repository that maintains the master data for an organization, and that is the tool for master data management. So if you look at it, if you look at the SAP evolution of SAP system, SAP were leaders in ERP system. In the 1970s to mid 1990s, they were primarily focused on the three primary modules, which is FI, logistics, and HRMS. So don't get me wrong, all these modules that had existed in the 1970s are still very efficient, but the company had to move along with the current trend. So what happened is during the mid 90s, when globalization started taking place, SAP tapped into the information that's available in the market and started creating advanced modules that will help move forward in the globalization era. So they started creating SAP BW system, which is a data warehousing tool, and they also looked at the existing modules in ERP and enhanced the products with new modules, and that's where SAP BW was initially. But in 2004, with the concept of single sign-on and internet framework, SAP decided to move into a new framework called SAP NetWeaver, and SAP BW made more sense to go and fall under the NetWeaver application framework, and it was closely integrated with Enterprise Portal. So there was one more information that was available. So during the globalization time, there was also another tool called SAP XI, which is Exchange Infrastructure. What it is you would have commonly heard. Let's say, let me open a new session, new slide. Let's say my organization had a mainframe application, had a Java application, had a .NET application. So across the organization, there were many different applications that were sitting. But for me to integrate all the information together and provide, let's say for example, my company is company ABC. My company had SAP ERP system and mainframe. And then there was another company called, let's say, CDE, which had a Java application and a .NET application. During the mid 90s, ABC company went and acquired company CDE. So there are two options that ABC can do. ABC can completely scrap the applications that were created by company CDE, that is Java and .NET, and spend a lot of money recreating this information in either SAP ERP system or in mainframe system. That is one option. The other option is look at the existing ERP and mainframe system and look at the Java and .NET application and see how they can be integrated. So in order to do this, there are several tools that were used. So there was a very commonly used tool called TIBCO. TIBCO was a very popularly used EAI system. It's a enterprise application integration system. So it would look at different systems that are available in an organization and try to integrate the information that is available. So prior to SAP XI, companies were using tools like TIBCO to do the enterprise application integration system. But SAP slowly during that 16 modules that were created, SAP looked into something called as SAP Exchange Infrastructure, SAP XI. What it does is it does the same functionality that a TIPCO tool would do. It does the enterprise application integration, but now it is a module that is available within the SAP system. This was also part of the. Now the name of the exchange infrastructure has been changed to PI, which stands for Process Integration. So this is SAP XI, and this was also part of the global, the second framework of SAP. Let me put it right here. SAP XI, now referred to as PI. So this is how the systems moved on from ERP system into my SAP Business Suite application, and then it moved on into the NetWeaver architecture. And with the NetWeaver architecture, now in 2007, SAP BW went and bought all the reporting tools from Business Objects. Once that was done, the reporting objects also fell under the SAP NetWeaver architecture. All the business objects related information came also into the SAP NetWeaver architecture. So this is how the SAP system evolved, and this is the system landscape. So when we go into a new project and when we start talking about our experience with SAP BW, the common terminologies that would go in any organization is people will be talking about different SAP systems that are available in the organization. So they will talk about how SAP ECC is connected to BW, how SAP CRM is connected to BW, how SAP APO is connected to BW, how Enterprise Portal is connected to BW, and what are all the different tools for business for reporting is available. So as a consultant, we should be aware of what are all the different landscapes that are available. Sorry, Gurunath, what was your question?
Back to the previous slide, I mean to say, like now, I didn't
Sure. Yeah, which one is it?
The reporting part, like the integration part of the reporting.
Yeah, this one.
Yeah, okay. The business
yeah,
object.
yeah, it's business object. So if you look at it, we were saying that in the year 2007, SAP BW was lagging behind in the reporting piece of it. The BEX suite was not as powerful because BEX is an Excel based tool, and it had a lot of limitation when it came to conditional reporting.
Okay.
So Crystal Report at that time was doing very powerful conditional reporting. You can format the reporting to a very minute detail, so you can actually get a delivered report as per your expectation. But when it came to Business Explorer, there were a lot of limitation. It was a very clumsy way of showing the report. It could be, if it was a finance user, they could quickly take a look at the finance data in an Excel spreadsheet, because normally if you look at people in the finance team, they always like to use Excel based reporting. For them it is good, but when it comes to other departments in the organization, they would typically like a conditional and structured format of reporting. So SAP went ahead and looked at Cognos and Business Objects and bought Business Objects.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you so much.
Sure, no problem. Okay, so that was about the SAP system. So going back to, this is my, as an SAP BW consultant, I should be able to talk about all my SAP landscape. So if somebody is asking you about SAP experience, and the primary reason why we are talking about the SAP landscape is this is forming a foundation. In our course, as I mentioned in data warehousing, the second primary function of a data warehousing tool is extraction, transformation, and loading. So when somebody goes and looks for an SAP BW consulting position, it is a given that all the organization will expect this consultant to be having good experience working with SAP modules. So what we are going to do is, as we go through the course, when we get into the ETL processing section of the course, what we are going to do is we are going to start extracting data from several SAP modules. So for example, SAP ECC, we will be looking at examples of SAP CRM. So within the SAP ECC, we will be looking at finance data, how to extract data from finance applications, how to extract data from SD applications, how to extract data from material management. So it is a requisite that an SAP consultant, SAP BW consultant, be aware of the SAP landscape. You should be able to easily navigate, say how SAP was evolved during the period, how the products were designed initially, how it moved in during the My SAP Business Suite application, and how it is currently in the market. So SAP BW or BI sits in an SAP NetWeaver architecture. So this is very good example where you can clearly talk about what information is stored, how is SAP landscape built, and you should be able to. But again, having known this information, nobody in an organization would expect that, okay, if you are an SAP BW consultant, you not only know SAP BW, but you are well versed in SAP CRM, SAP ECC, SAP APO. No, that is not the expectation. What is expected from a company is, do you know the procedure to extract data from an SAP CRM system? Do you know the procedures to extract from different ECC system? How to bring in data? Looking at the data that is available in an ECC system. For example, if you look at finance tables, there are several tables that are holding financial information. You don't need to know every table and how its functionality is maintained. But what is expected out of an SAP BW consultant is, how can you look at that table and design a structure within the BW system? That is possible, right? As you start working on projects and as we go through the training, we will be looking at all these tables. I'll be giving overview of what finance application does, what SD application does, what CRM application does. We will be looking at the tables. We will also do hands-on experience on how to bring data from an FI system like AP, AR, GL. How do we bring that data into the BW system? Similarly, we will be looking at SAP CRM system. So what is expected is, you have a good understanding of an SAP landscape, where each object resides in an SAP arena. That is first thing. Second thing is, as you start working on projects, when we go through a lot of hands-on experience that we will be doing during the course of the this batch, you will get exposure to how we are extracting data from several SAP systems in the landscape. We will also be learning about how data is being extracted from non-SAP source systems like Oracle, Microsoft SQL, flat file data load. So if you look at all these examples, these are real-time examples. If you go into an organization, as I said earlier, if an organization is using SAP BW as a data warehousing tool, it is almost guaranteed that the same company has also invested money on SAP modules. If SAP is not there and they are brand new doing SAP BW, that is a very rare scenario, because if that is the situation, then they would have looked at other data warehousing tools like third-party tools to achieve the same thing. But if a company is investing money on SAP BW, it would normally mean that they are already invested money on SAP other modules and they want to enhance the functionality. So they want to tap all this information into the SAP BW system. So for that, you should be able to understand what the different landscapes are and should be able to bring in that information. So now the three primary functions, as I mentioned, now we will be able to, during the course, we will talk about modeling. We will talk about how tables in the ECC system can be modeled to be brought into SAP BW. A table here in FICO will get converted into a cube into a BW system. What is the procedure to do that conversion? How do we design the system in SAP BW? So that is modeling concept. Once the modeling is done, we have to actually do the extraction. See, if you look at SAP ECC, tables in the ECC system could be stored in a different structure. There could be multiple tables holding FI information. I could have one table here, I could have one table. There will be a join connecting one table to the other. So the data is sitting across multiple tables. I have to look at all these tables, understand what the connecting factors, joining factors are, and come up with a design logic that will extract the data from these two tables and bring it into one cube, into a target structure. So that involves both modeling and the ETL process. So the modeling actually tells how these two tables will be combined into one info cube in the target system. That is designing. The next piece is how do I extract data? I have to do a connection from the data warehousing system to the SAP ECC system to pull information from these multiple tables into this cube. So that is ETL processing. So now that the ETL data is sitting here, I have to write queries, create queries. I have to create queries in the BW system or in the data warehousing tool using tools like Query Designer, or I could use BO tools. I can create a universe on top of the data that is available in the BW, and I would use that information to report my data, do intelligent reporting. So as a BW consultant, we should be able to talk about the SAP landscape and also talk about how SAP can connect to different SAP modules. So this is the concept of SAP landscape, and that's what I wanted to cover for tonight. Any questions? As a BW consultant, everybody is expected to know what an SAP system is, what its landscape is, and how can SAP BW system connect to the different objects in an SAP landscape. Any questions? Okay, so if there are no other questions, I'm thinking maybe we'll call it a day today here, and then we'll move on to OLTP and OLAP systems on Wednesday. Any last questions before we end the session for tonight? So for the next session, what we are going to do is we are going to look at the structure of an OLTP system and also the structures of an OLAP system. So as you know, OLTP is online transaction processing system. So when we talk about online transaction processing system, we are talking about regular transactional databases. We'll be looking at it, how data is residing in an OLTP system. What is the kind of modeling that we do to put data into it? So it is called ER model. We will look at ER model and see how a business requirement is converted and loaded into a transactional database. So this is a transactional database. So that is OLTP system. So we will do a compare and contrast between what an OLTP system can do and also an OLAP system. So OLAP system is nothing but a data warehousing system. So we will look at data warehousing system. In order to get the data from a transactional database structure into a data warehousing structure, we have to use something called as multi-dimension model. Multi-dimensional model is also called as a star schema. So we will be looking at how data, we will look at a business requirement, understand how the business requirement. So for example, we said that Walmart has a point of sale system. Whenever a transaction happens, we will take that information and put it into the transactional database. That is the final output. But for the business to make a decision that data comes into the point of sale, from there it moves into a transactional database. The system there has to be some business requirement. It says that okay, these are the kind of data that we would be getting. We look at the kind of data that is got into the system. We do a ER model to efficiently store that information for transactional reporting purpose. So the ER model plays a significant role to store this transactional database. This serves a specific reason. This is used for transactional or day-to-day reporting. This kind of data is used for day-to-day reporting, and it serves that purpose. But now, if we want to convert this data into an intelligent reporting, So we have to go through something called as a data conversion. So we take the ER model, understand what the limitations of the day-to-day reporting structure is, and we convert it into a MDM structure, and we store that information into a data warehousing tool. So in the next session, this is what we are going to be talking about: OLTP system versus OLAP system. So there are certain limitations with an OL. So what we are going to do is we are going to first look at what OLTP system can do. As the name transaction itself suggests, it holds transactional detail level of information. When we talk about detail level of information, we are talking about, let's say for example, I am talking about a bank transaction. When a bank transaction is happening, the company's main motive is to store that information as quickly and possible and as efficiently as possible. So the company, the database should be able to do quick updates, quick insert, quick delete. If anything needs to be happening on a transaction, it has to be real quick. So if a system has to function very quick, it has to be first designed highly efficient to store data. Second thing is the volume has to be less. If the volume is high, let's say if I am holding billions and billions of transactions in a database, I want to make an update to an existing record. If the system goes through a full scan of the table to do an update, normally a transaction user will not wait. If I want to do an update to my bank account information, I cannot wait for 15 minutes for the system to go analyze all the data that is there and make an update. The system has to do it right then and there. So for that, the primary quality that is required is the system should have very little information stored in the system, so that the updates and inserts are real fast. But in the case of data warehousing, the reasoning of data warehousing is entirely different from what transactional database is doing. A data warehouse is supposed to have larger volume of data because it is used for analytical purposes. It is not used for day-to-day reporting. So when you look at a transactional database, it is a real-time data. As soon as I make a transaction, I go and log in into the web account for my bank, I will see that transaction is stored in my system. So I need to see it real time. As soon as the transaction is complete, I should be able to see it. But when it comes to data warehousing, the kind of reporting I would require is, I'm not looking at what transaction just got done, because that is not the analytical reasoning I want to see. I am looking at data from a very large perspective. I'm going to be looking at what happened this month when compared to last year same month, or I'm going to be looking at how this month information is, and I'm going to forecast how my next year is going to be. I can do predictive modeling. I can see how the data would look in next year. So for that, I'm not looking at today's transaction. I'm not looking at real-time data. What I'm doing is I'm looking at near real-time. So when I'm talking about data warehousing system, I cannot be pulling information that is happening in an ECC system. When a transaction is saved in an ECC system, I cannot expect that data to come into BW system. There are situations where we can do that, but in a typical data warehousing system, there is always a delay. It is an expected rule that a data warehousing system will have data probably till yesterday. It will not have today's transactions that are happening in ECC system. Today's transaction will come into the BW system tomorrow, because the kind of structure that is used for data warehousing is not for day-to-day analysis. It is for trend reporting and forecasting and all that kind of analytical information. So that is a big difference between a transaction system and a data warehousing system. So a transaction system holds less volume of data, but in the case of a data warehousing system, it holds historical information to store data. A transactional database is designed using an ER model. A data warehousing system is designed using a MDM model. A transactional database is made highly efficient for updates, deletes, and inserts. So what happens is this database is highly normalized. You would have normally referred to as first normal form, second normal form, third normal form. What happens is the database is tuned such a way that there is no redundant information stored in the table. So when when an insert or an update happens, the update happens real quick. But in the case of data warehousing, the primary function is it's not writing or inserting data. The primary function is reporting, so reading that information. So in order to read the information from a data warehousing table, it is okay for us to have redundant information stored. The reason why it is okay to have redundant information is, my idea is I want to get the best amount of analytical information possible. For that, if I have to have data stored in redundant format, it is okay, because the functionality of a data warehouse itself is to hold large volume of data. So it can accommodate redundant data in the system. So these are some of the high level differences between an OLTP system and an OLAP system. So what we are going to do is, next session we will go into details, we will do a compare and contrast and try to understand with example how certain data looks in transactional database, how the same data would go into data warehousing system, and how would it look like. Once we do that, we will look into ER model and MDM model. We'll take an example of how we'll take a small requirement, understand how the ER model is created for that particular requirement, and see how transactional reporting will be used for that. Once that is done, we'll see what are the limitations that system would have for a transactional database. To overcome those limitations, we will convert from an ER model into an MDM model. MDM model is the foundation for SAP BW system. So when we talk about modeling in SAP BW, all we are talking about is how to use MDM structure. So that will be a leeway for us to get started with modeling. So our course structure, if you remember, we are going to be first talking about modeling. Modeling will lead us to ETL processing, and then that will eventually lead us to reporting. But for us to understand and appreciate what these different modules will do, if I directly go into modeling, it will not make much sense. Now that we have a good understanding of what the SAP system is, we understand what OLTP and OLAP systems limitations and our advantages are. Once we understand that and why we use ER model and MDM model, if I give that information and then go into modeling into SAP BW, you will understand the logical flow of information. That is why I'm trying to do it this way. Any questions? Any questions?
Hey, sorry, if you have a minute, this is Sam, sorry. If you have a minute, can you go back to the evolution slide that you are talking about?
Sure.
I just missed one point in between.
Sure, no problem. Give me 1 second, let me go back to that. Yeah.
And here in the middle one, which you are talking about, when they introduce 60 modules.
Correct.
And how it's different from BW. BW is a warehouse. So is this 60 modules different from BW? How does that work?
Correct, because each of them, if you look at it, has its own specific functionality, right? So what happened is, in the earlier earlier evolution, SAP was only focused on ERP model, because you know why? What happened? Normally companies were all in one place, right? If a company was in United States, it was just in United States. It did not have presence in India or in China or something like that. So the modules that were used, FI, logistics, and HRMS, were sufficient. I didn't have to do data warehousing. I could have just used the traditional database.
Correct.
I could have used traditional database, stored all this information, and I could have done some reporting, some level of reporting on these. So there was no requirement for me to go into a larger database. But as we moved into globalization era, this was not sufficient. The time to the market for me to quickly analyze the data and get ahead in the market, this would have not been sufficient. So the company started working on something called as a data warehousing solution. where I tap in data from across the globe and store it in a structure which will help me do that. And that's why SAP BW was created. But when SAP BW was created, it is one view, right? I'm looking at analytical reporting. But in addition to that, there were flaws or gaps available in the existing modules. So SD, when I said SD had only sales and distribution, it did not know what marketing was. It did not know what customer service was. It did not have those concepts at that time. Only during globalization and all these things were happening, only after the internet presence came into existence, people started talking about marketing, internet marketing, e-marketing, business, B2B marketing, all this. So when that came, SAP wanted to get a first mover advantage. So they quickly moved into modules like SAP CRM. But if you look at it, SAP CRM is not the first module that came in for CRM. There were models like, there were systems like SAP, Siebel, JD Edwards, Siebel CRM systems. So Siebel CRM systems are all existed prior to SAP CRM. But what SAP did was, it looked at the existing market products like Siebel CRM and all that. They looked at the gap that is available in the SD system, filled the gap looking at these objects, and created a new model called SAP CRM. So look at my SAP Business Suite as an enhancement to the existing ERP product.
All right. Okay. I got it.
All right.
Thanks so much.
Oh, no problem. So Srinath, you had a question. Are there any topics of BO or covered in this course of
Suman, this is Sridhar.
Yes, Sridhar.
Can you please tell me, because our intention of joining this course is just let us, we wanted to know where the HANA can fit here exactly.
Sure. Let me talk about HANA for a real quick. Okay.
Because I have some little knowledge in Informatica and OBI tool. I worked around 6 months on that tool. So just I wanted to know where HANA, how HANA can be fit into BW, SAP BW, and what are the advantages of the BW and HANA if you learn HANA and BW.
Definitely. Sure. So if you look at the traditional BW system, BW is a data warehousing tool. So it contains an application server and it has an associated database server, right? So what happens is, data, let's say when there is an ECC system, a transaction happens in ECC system, it is moved into the data warehousing system. It comes to the application server and then it moves into the database server for it to actually store in the database. So when a report is run on this application server, what happens is the requirement, let's say there is a query that runs. I'm saying that I want to get XYZ from the application server. The query definition goes to the application server, but the actual data is transferred from the database server going into the application server, and then the data is brought back for reporting. So if you look at it, there is a two-way process. It goes to the application server, goes down to database server, comes up, and then goes back to the reporting. So the time taken for the query to go reach the database and get back the information, there is some IO processing, right? Input output processing that is happening.
Yes.
So this takes X amount of time.
Correct.
Right? So now let's look at the new module that is called SAP HANA. SAP HANA is nothing but a database. But the difference between an SAP HANA system and a database is, a database stores data in a traditional format.
Yes,
right?
correct.
It stores data like 100, ABC, Whopper, $100. So this is one record. 100 is the customer number, ABC is the customer name, product is Whopper, amount is $100. So this is one record. So data in a database server is stored normally by record basis. So what happens is, when a query is run, the system has to go through each record, identify the data, combine it together and provide the information back to the query. So there is lot of input output and massaging of the data that needs to happen in a traditional database environment. When it comes to HANA, HANA uses a different technology altogether. It uses something called as IMC, which is in memory computing engine. It is something similar to what Google is doing. If you look at it, if you run a query on a Google website, you will see that the speed in which it returns data back, right? So it uses something called as a in-memory computing engine. It stores data in a different format. Here data is stored in a row base. In SAP HANA, the data is stored in a column base. What it does is it internally looks at, for example, there are 10 records that are stored for 100, account 100. It will only store a unique combination of 100. It will keep that in its memory and it will have pointers looking for this data. So similarly, ABC, it will have a unique value stored in a column and it will know how to refer to a pointer and get that information. So what I'm saying is a data here is traditionally stored as row based. In a SAP HANA system, the data is stored as a column based information. And what happens is a SAP BW system can sit on top of SAP HANA. So here if you look at it, SAP BW is an application server and it has a separate database server. But with HANA, SAP system can actually directly sit on SAP HANA, meaning that the SAP application is sitting on the database, HANA database. So whatever transaction is being sent into the database, into the application server for BW, let's say here, it directly goes and sits into the database. So the input output read is limited. There is no time taken to load data, get it into the database server, bring it into the application server, and it is all in one place. So when I run a query, the data is already residing there. So there is no input output read that is happening. The result in which the data comes back quick is very quick. So let's say for example, SAP has been doing a lot of research and they have done a lot of proof of concept, and there are some statistics that are shown. In a traditional database environment, let's say there are over 50 billion records sitting in a system and a complex report was run on it without HANA database, with a traditional database. SAP came out with a statistic that it took about 1 or 2 hours to run that report and bring back the data. The same model was replicated into the HANA database system and rerun. The program, the same complexity, after putting it into HANA, it came back within less than 13 or 14 seconds. So look at the comparison. The system that ran for over 1 hour came back in less than 15 or 16 seconds. So the new technology that HANA is using is, it is using a different row column based technology to store information. So all the data sits in a memory. It's all cached data. So it does not have to go and read a database. This operation is completely eliminated. If you look at it, this particular operation of going back into the database and reading is all gone. So SAP is very powerful when it comes to that. Now talking about SAP HANA and BW. The idea is SAP HANA is just a database, right? But it's given a lot of additional functionality that mirrors a BW system. So if you look at it, when we talk about BW system, we create different objects underneath the, so it's called info cube. We create DSOs, we create info objects. So these are all different objects that are available in a traditional BW system. Okay, so these are all objects. So what happens is when somebody learns and understands the SAP BW system, they know how info cubes are designed, how data stores are designed, how info objects are designed. If you look at the SAP HANA system, HANA system has a modeling tool in it. So this modeling tool, all it creates is it creates 3 different concepts: attribute view, it creates something called as analytical view, and it also creates something called as calculation view. Okay, so an attribute view is nothing but an info object in BW terms. An analytical view is nothing but an info cube in BW terms. A calculation view is nothing but a multi-provider that is created in a SAP BW system. So for right now, HANA is using all the BW concepts that are available in the market. It is using the existing concepts that are available in SAP BW, like the info cube, DSO, info objects, multi-provider, and it is mimicking that information or functionality in an SAP tool. So with the current module, SAP HANA 1.0 version, it has only 2 types. It can only handle 2 types of information. So let me quickly go here. So let's say this is SAP HANA. SAP HANA can bring data from SAP and non-SAP source systems. SAP ECC and let's say Oracle. So it can bring in data from these systems into SAP HANA. There are various ways by which I can bring data here. But this, if you're directly doing, you can directly do a SAP HANA training. But for you to appreciate the functionality of an SAP HANA, it is always, because what we are trying to do here is, at the end of the day, why do we want to store information in SAP HANA? We want to do OLAP reporting. That's the idea. If I'm not going to be doing OLAP reporting, if I just want transactional database, I don't even need a SAP HANA. The idea at the end of the day is I want to be able to use the data to create intelligent reporting. So for me to use intelligent reporting, what is the core knowledge I need? I need data warehousing knowledge. So this is how I progressed my career. I started off with doing business intelligence and data warehousing. My concepts in data warehousing are very strong. Now my next progression is, so what I have done is, in my previous projects, I have worked with several modules in SAP BW. I have worked on FICO, which includes AP, AR, GL. I have worked on HRMS. I have worked on CRM. I have worked on a new module called Business Process and Consolidation. So my subject matter expertise on functional modules is very strong, as well as my data warehousing experience. Now with this information, now I am working on SAP HANA. I am doing a proof of concept of the SAP HANA system, where I don't have to spend much time understanding the SAP HANA system. I already have a very good knowledge about my data warehousing tool. All I'm doing is I'm applying that information on an SAP system, SAP HANA system. So with this combination, if I were to go out in the market, for my experience, I'm looking at an average of about, I mean, again, this is the I'm looking at anywhere between 175 to 200 an hour, because what we have is, we have a good subject matter expertise of functional modules, a very strong experience in SAP BW system, and I'm applying these 2 information on top of SAP HANA. So my suggestion would be that I'm not saying that you should be taking this or that. My recommendation is, I would always start off with understanding the data warehouse. The reason why I'm saying that is the foundation for OLAP reporting. The current trend is all organizations want to do OLAP reporting. They want to do analytical and business intelligence reporting. For that, the strongest foundation would always be a data warehousing platform. Once you have the data warehousing expertise, because data warehouse, if you look at it, It is the logical place where all the system information comes and resides in one place. If you have a good understanding of the data warehousing system, then it is just a plug and play. You're looking at advanced modules, SAP HANA. You can look at BO objects, the business objects for reporting. All these can be added as cream on top of a data warehousing expertise to make yourself a total rounded SAP consultant. So that is my thought. So I would say that anybody who is new to SAP system, the best way to start in an SAP career is to do with the SAP BW, because if you look at it logically, if I were to start in an SAP ECC module, if I were to start in FICO or HRMS, I'm only getting that information. I will be a functional consultant working only on FICO. I will not know what HRMS system is doing, what CRM is doing, what BPC is doing. But if I were to work on a data warehousing tool, I will be working on several modules that are bringing data into the data warehousing system. So it is a central repository where I get all the information that I require. My foundation becomes really strong, and I build on that. Now that I have a very good experience with data warehousing, I will look at SAP HANA, because if you look at any of the jobs that are available in SAP HANA, you will see that nobody is asking for SAP HANA as a standalone. 99% of the job that is available in the market will say something like this: we're looking for a SAP HANA consultant with strong BW background. This is how you can, after this class, you can go and do a search on DICE or Google or something like that and see how the market for SAP HANA is. And don't get me wrong, SAP HANA is the future, but SAP HANA by itself is not the future right now. SAP HANA, because it is building on the data warehousing concept that BW is having, you will see that all the jobs are coming with SAP HANA plus BW plus BO, because that is needed for reporting. So this would be the trend, and this would be the career progression. Did I answer your question?
Yes, Suman, thank you. But one more question. So in
Sure.
future, whatever the SAP family, SAP organizations are using SAP application, would they be replacing their database with SAP HANA?
That would be the future, yes. So what will happen is, if you look at it, I'll quickly show you one more example. I have my HANA system here, right? And then I have my SAP ECC, SAP CRM, all this information. So if you look at it, data is residing in a transactional data format in ECC system. It's residing in transactional data in CRM. What I'm doing is, I'm bringing this data. I have to get this data, do ETL processing, right? Like any other data warehousing tool, I have to do ETL processing to convert this data, do transformation, and load it into the HANA. So what I'm doing is, let's say, for example, I have 1 terabyte of data across multiple systems here, right? I have 1 terabyte of data. What I'm doing right now is, I am making data duplicity. I'm making data redundant here. I'm copying that 1 terabyte data again into my HANA database, because if you look at it, there is data sitting here. I'm copying that data and putting it into HANA database. So there is 1 terabyte of data maintained here, 1 terabyte of data maintained here. That's unwanted space that is wasted, right?
Yes.
So the concept is, and if you look at it, what they are saying is, so I have to read this table, put it here. I have to put this read table. So the time taken, one is space requirement. The second is the time taken to move this data, transform the data, and put it into the HANA system takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of time. But instead of doing that, what is the SAP ECC sits within HANA? What if the SAP CRM sits within HANA database? I am not duplicating the data. there is only 1 terabyte data, and that is sitting in one place. I don't have to do any ETL processing because the data is already within my HANA database. And since I have HANA database using in-memory computing engine, I can store the data in a format such a way that it is extremely fast for me to do reporting. And the other thing is, if you look at SAP BW with the current version itself, with SAP BW 7.3, it can directly now sit on HANA database. So whatever data that is coming into the SAP BW system is directly sitting on the HANA database. So there are certain tasks when we go through the sessions, you will understand that what are all the certain limitations when we use a database, a traditional BW system with a traditional database. What happens is certain calculations, since this is an application layer, any calculation that needs to happen can only happen at a database layer. So it goes underneath. So let's say this is my database for my BW system. The calculation has to happen in the database. So the time taken to do the calculation is there. But if the application is directly sitting on the HANA database, everything is happening in one place. And when we are using the computing engine that is available in HANA database, the calculation is done much faster than a regular database. So that is why everybody is moving toward HANA. But there is a common misconception that HANA is going to replace database BW system. That is not true. What is true is, if you look at if you go to SAP website and if you read about HANA database, what they are trying to do is, they are now trying to compete with market leaders for database. So who is now the only market competitor for database is Oracle. SAP HANA is directly challenging Oracle, saying that in the near future, Oracle's market share will be taken away by SAP HANA. That is what they are focusing on. Their focus is not on removing SAP BW and replacing it using SAP HANA. This is a database layer, and SAP BW is an application layer. Still, SAP BW is used for all modeling, ETL, and reporting functionality. Just that the underlying database will now become HANA. Did I clarify that for you, Sridhar?
Yeah, but when you directly connect, when the entire SAP family is moving on one database, that is HANA, then where SAP BW come into picture when there is no ETL process?
But you're only looking at, so now let me say that your SAP BW is not only for SAP, right? It is used for non-SAP source system also. Let's say I brought in my ECC, I brought in my CRM into HANA. But I've already established my SAP BW system to bring in data from several other source systems. I have already created my data marts in my BW system. It will not make sense for me to revamp all that into my HANA system. I want to use the existing SAP BW system that is now talking to several non-SAP source systems, and I want to use that information to put that information on HANA database.
During demo, that Ishwar or someone told that there is a privilege, adapter or something is there within the SAP HANA to make the integration with connectivity with other non-SAP application databases, so that whenever the transaction has happened in non-SAP application, directly the data will be stored in SAP HANA for reporting purpose. The data record will be
That
available.
is true. That is true. But let's say if you look at any organization, any top 100, top 50, top 500 or 1000 companies, if you look at it, all of them have gone into SAP BW. So their implementation for SAP BW are really huge. Several data marts are already sitting on BW systems. If a company is a brand new company and it is going into SAP technology, they will look at different scenarios to see how I can efficiently use SAP HANA. In that case, they might think, okay, why not I directly go into SAP HANA? But if you look at the statistics for SAP BW, there are over 20,000 customers across the globe that are heavily invested in applications in SAP BW. So the trend is such a way that SAP BW HANA cannot be replaced using a SAP HANA system. It is only being leveraged, an SAP BW is being leveraged on top of a HANA database to give better results. If you look at it, SAP BW system was associated with something called as a BW accelerator. BW accelerator is nothing but it improves the query performance. Similar to a HANA database, it also does memory computing. But there are a lot of drawbacks with this system. So what they are trying to do is they are trying to eliminate this BWA, and instead of using a BWA system, they want BW to now talk to HANA and get much better performance. So that's what is happening. Any other questions? Okay, if not, we can end the session for tonight. We'll continue on OLTP and OLAP systems on Wednesday. All right?
Thank you, Suman.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Suman, I have one question.
Yeah, sure.
Are we going to use the SAP like practically as well?
Oh, definitely. See, this is the first session. If I directly go into the hands-on experience right now, not everybody will be able to appreciate what the system does, right? So I have to clearly set a path, an organized path, so that everybody understands what the concept is. Once the concepts are made clear, when we go into doing hands-on experience, you will be able to go back and listen to the recorded sessions now. Whatever sessions we have covered, you will be able to appreciate that. You'll say, okay, now this makes sense to me. Why am I creating an info object? Because I need to use this concept that was explained in the demo and the session 1. So I'm just making a logical data flow now, explaining what are all the things that we require, setting the path so that when we get more. So next session would also be a little more theoretical because I need to still cover some baselines.
Okay. Yeah.
Subsequent to that, once I get into modeling, once I start explaining what an info object is, how an info object is created, we will start having assignments. We'll having hands-on experience.
Okay.
I'll log in.
And do we also get the chance to play by ourselves?
Oh, definitely. Yes, yes. We will be setting up server connection for all the participants in the class.
Okay.
And it will be published in the blog. You will get an email saying that this is your BW server connection and ECC server connection.
Okay.
And you will have instructions on what needs to be done. In addition, as and when we progress through the sessions, I'll be putting a lot of assignments in the blogs for you to.
And also, do we get some chance on working on the different modules like FICO, CRM, from where we have
definitely yes
the business warehouse?
Oh yeah, definitely, because that is what we want to do, right? We want to give the participants real-time experience. Once you are comfortable with modeling, once we start working on the ETL processing, so what we are going to do is we will first introduce you with a simple kind of ETL process, a flat file. We will create a text file and see how that data is loaded. Why are we doing that? For you to make sure how the data flow happens. You should become very familiar with the data flow, how a data flows from a source system to BW. Once you have practiced that, the next logical step is I have understood one type of source extraction. Now the next type of source extraction is SAP based source extraction. For SAP, we will use FI example, SD example, some CRM example.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I already worked for the BI team at Microsoft. We used to get the requirements and run the campaigns and goes against the authorized users.
Okay.
To see their age, sex, and location from all over the world.
So
I have that concept. My ultimate goal is to go for the SAP BI, the business objects and the business intelligence.
Sure.
For the crystal reports and the designing for the dashboard. So I'm preparing from the ground level up, from the business warehouse to the BOBI and then to the HANA.
Definitely, and I think that is the right way to do it also, Gary, because once you understand the business warehouse concept, everything is on top of that. As you said, Once you have the business warehouse foundation, you can look at database, HANA database, you can look at business object reporting. Everything is worked on top of that.
All right. Thanks, Suman. Thanks for really.
Sure, no problem.
Hey, Suman, this is Sam.
Yes, Sam.
Hey, Suman, I have my experience is totally in the front end of business objects reporting. I haven't worked on the data warehouse development. So, is your curriculum geared towards a fresher who haven't done a data warehouse before?
Yes, Sam. Yeah, that's why if you look at the demo session, and you can always talk to Arita and get the recorded sessions for demo. The last session was a demo session. We are starting as though all the participants have no experience on the data warehousing. So we are starting from a clean slate.
Oh, is it okay?
Yeah.
And second question, you were talking about a hands-on project. So actually, is it an academic project data or is it real-time data extracted from some sources that will get a
It is a real-time extraction. So what we can do is, I will share my real-time examples, the projects that I have worked on previous companies.
Okay.
I'll take that examples and I will run through scenarios.
Wonderful. Because
I might not be able to share the exact data because that would be breaking confidentiality data, right?
Correct.
What I'm doing is I will explain the concept. This is how the project ran. We will put some dummy data in the system and try to extract that. All we are trying to do is we are trying to understand how the process is working.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, definitely we will be doing that.
Yeah, on actual data is a lot different than conceptually academic data.
Correct. It is just we are just putting some junk data so that all we are trying to do is we are trying to bring in data into the BW system so that we can make sense out of it. We can put some reporting on top of it and see how the data flows from one end to the other.
Okay, wonderful.
All right. Thank you so much. I will talk to you guys on Wednesday.
Suman, one more question.
Sure.
So, do you have the chances to give some idea about SAP certification at the end of the courses?
We will be, as and when we are talking, discussing each topic, Rafiq, what we are going to do is we are going to touch upon the certification questions. So when I'm covering a specific topic, let's say for example modeling, I will not only share the concept, I'm going to do hands-on experience, right? So when I do the hands-on experience, I'll point out what are all the certification questions that would be that we would be covering. Whenever a concept is being dealt with, I'll say these are all the questions that would be part of certification. We will not stop there. We will also look at a day-to-day issue resolution. So learning is one thing. When you get into a real project, you should also be able to see what are all the day-to-day issues that would come in a project and how do you resolve those issues.
That makes sense. I understand and appreciate your relation to that. Thanks.
Sure, no problem. All right. So talk to you guys on Wednesday. Good night.
Okay. Good night.
Thanks. Good night.